Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
Good. We'll wait just a minute, let everybody come in. So since this is a statewide call, why don't you guys hop over to the chat and put what district you are from, or yes, what district you're from. Let's see who all we have today. See a bunch of our CLSD grant people, OKMA, and let's see where else. Collinsville. Okay, well, it is 9 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Share my screen with you. So today we're going to be talking about Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. Let's see that. Okay, do you guys see my slideshow? Can everybody see my slideshow? Thumbs up if you could see it, someone. Yes, okay, thank you. I want to make sure. Okay, so let me see. The screen is a little wonky. Let me fix something real quick. Okay, I think we're good. All right, well, let's see. So welcome to the March Leading OKMTSS for administrators. I'm so glad you could join us. My name is Marlo Lee, and I'm the MTSS program manager at the State Department. I work for the OCLSD grant, and so and they are working on MTSS implementation. And so if you're not part of one of our OCLSD grants, welcome, because this is a statewide call because we want to support implementation across the state. So hopefully you get some good information today that will help you implement MTSS in your districts and buildings. I have some great information, and I always love to share tools. I know when I attended a PD or something, I wanted to make sure I walked away with something. So at the end, I always share some deliverables that you can print off and take back to your district and hopefully put to good use. I love this topic because really, to me, the tier 2 and tier 3, this is like the real part of MTSS. This is when you're getting in there and making decisions, and where you see, a lot of growth happen with your students. So I always like to start with some background information on MTSS, just in case anyone hasn't been through this yet. So if this is a repeat for you, hopefully this is building your making it sticky. We're bringing in that repeated practice. So MTSS is a multi-tiered system of supports. It's a proactive and preventative framework that integrates data and instruction to maximize student achievement and support students' needs from a strengths-based perspective. And there are 3 tiers to our framework. There's tier 1, and that is universal for all students. It's all the supports, so everyone is in tier 1. And then no one leaves tier 1. You layer on tier 2 and tier 3. So tier 1 is the supports that we give to every student. And then targeted for tier 2 is for some students. So those that need a little bit extra than just the tier 1 universal supports. And then we have tier 3 that for students that need intensive support. They need even more than just that tier 2. So there are 5 domains of MTSS. There are screening, progress monitoring, database decision-making, that's where we're going to focus today, multi-level prevention system, and infrastructure. And so here is our framework. And so I have highlighted here in red the area of the framework we're going to be focusing on today. So data-driven decisions, measurement for team-based decisions, and identifying needs and selecting interventions and practices. And so MTSS, we were always an RTI school at my previous district. And then we implemented positive behavior system. And so the 2 of those together make MTSS. So some schools are just, RTI, and some have just PBIS. And it's the combination of the 2 that makes MTSS. And then we have some common misconceptions that we like to try to help clear up for people. MTSS is not a special education initiative. And I know that that's kind of confusing to see people sometimes, because a lot of things that are pushed out seem to be under a special ed umbrella, but it's really not. It's a general education initiative. It's not just for some students. MTSS encompasses all students from every level, every age. It is not only for elementary school, even though sometimes it's implemented first in elementary, or it seems to fit easier in elementary. It's really for elementary, middle, and high school, all students. And then MTSS isn't a program or anything you can purchase. It's actually just a system or framework that can fit with any school to improve student outcomes. So looking ahead to 2032-33, as you know, MTSS will replace the discrepancy model in Oklahoma schools. And so we are working to prepare people for that. If you're on this call, you're probably already working towards getting that implemented. By that time, it is a process, I will say, and those of you going through it, it doesn't just happen overnight. It's a multi-year process. Now, MTSS will not delay the eligibility process, so it's good to keep that in mind. And schools should have systems in place by 2032. So today's objective, we are going to build our capacity to lead OKMTSS implementation through data-driven decision-making in Tier 2 and Tier 3 in order to identify student needs and select evidence-based practices using specific data protocols. That is a long sentence. And so again, this is where we'll be working in the framework. We like to highlight that. so that you know where it fits in your framework. And so let's talk about decision rules. So where do they fit in MTSS? Decision rules are created during plan development with your MTSS leadership team, and they're applied during plan evaluation or your data meetings. Okay, so these decision rules that we're going to talk about today, these are put together by your leadership team, and then they're implemented through your data meetings. They guide decisions across all tiers. They confirm tier 1 effectiveness before expanding to tier 2, adjusting tier 2 before intensifying to tier 3. They help you decide how and when to do that. And then they ensure decisions are based on student data. So today, I love this. We're going to look at decision-making rules in MTSS through a clinical lens today. I love this analogy because it's something that most people can connect to in the healthcare system. And so we are going to look at it, like I said, through a clinical lens, because I think that will help you understand better how we make decisions for tier 2 and tier 3. I better catch up with my notes. I've just been talking from my head, so I better get my notes in front of me real quick. Okay. So I have a lot to say about this. So today we're going to strip the traditional educational lens to view multi-tiered systems of support as a high-stakes clinical healthcare system. Its primary function is to serve like a safety net for students for whom tier 1 or general wellness or core instruction is insufficient. Okay, so the continuum of care. So moving from tier 1 to tiers 2 and 3 represents a move towards specialized care. Just as a patient is referred from a general practitioner to a specialist, student support must become progressively more intensive, frequent, and precise based on the student's academic or behavioral health. So let's look at the clinical mapping. So for tier 2, we could think of that as specialist care. And then tier 3, we could think of that as like intensive care, more precision, okay? More one-on-one, individualized, data-based instruction. So we have progress monitoring. So we're going to check in on our vital signs. And then we're going to adjust the treatment strength if the student doesn't respond to tier 2. And then we're going to look at fidelity, the treatment adherence. Okay, was the prescription taken as it was planned? Was it taken as the doctor intended, or this reading specialist or teacher, whatever? So our objective is to provide a treatment plan for students matched to verified skill deficits with diagnostic precision, ensuring that no student's academic recovery is left to chance. Oh, I went too far. So here is a visual of the tiers through a healthcare lens. So down here at the bottom, we have tier 1, which is wellness and preventive care. We're going to liken it to that. And then tier 2 would be more like a specialist clinic, like, okay, something's not working in tier 1. We need a little more help from maybe a specialist. And then we're going to look at tier 3, and this is intensive. Okay, this is where tier 2 supports weren't working, they weren't responding, so we need to do something more. So tier 2, the specialist prescription. Tier 2 is not a casual extension of the classroom. It is a specialist type referral. We're moving from general care to a standard treatment protocol. And we're going to talk more about what that means. And I have a handout for you, or actually more than a handout, I have a template for you. So this is targeted instruction designed to address common instructional deficits using a district-approved, evidence-based menu of interventions. So it's targeted instruction versus symptomatic support. Tier 2 is not for homework, help, or simple reteaching. It consists of validated evidence-based interventions intentionally selected for a verified skill deficit. There's standardized delivery requirements. So we don't just pull something off the internet and run it, haphazardly. And then the next day we try something different. So there's like a specific intervention we'll use with specific protocols. That way that you'll be able to match the fidelity and make sure that it was implemented as it was designed. If not, just like healthcare, if you don't take the medicine as designed, how can we say it didn't work? The intervention didn't work. Okay. So to ensure treatment efficacy, the following components must be implemented with high fidelity. We need to have explicit modeling, multiple opportunities to respond. So that's high frequency student engagement. That's the back and forth talking. Immediate corrective feedback is important. Real-time correction to prevent misconceptions. And then structured lesson routines, predictable patterns that reduce the cognitive load for students. So the small group clinic. Tier 2 relies on homogeneous grouping. It's usually 3 to 5 students by group, and grouping students by need. So if you have students that are working on fluency, you would have your 3 to 5 students that group together that could work on the same intervention. Let's move along here. The diagnostic, diagnostics, the skill match. If you go to a doctor and everything looks great, in tier 1, you have a healthy diet, you're exercising and everything looks great. He's going to send you on your way and say, hey, come see me next year. But if something is off, he's going to do some diagnostics to figure out what specifically is going on. So he'll be able to treat it with the right, prescription. Yes. So that's what we want to make sure we do with students too. So once we screen students and there's a flag up, they're flagged red, they're well below. Well, we need to dig in and see like where, we can't just shoot in the dark and say, oh, let's try this. Let's try. And we want to know exactly what's wrong so that we'll know the exact intervention or prescription to prescribe for that student. So we don't treat it based on hunches. Wouldn't that be horrible if you went to the doctor and like, oh, I think it's this, let's try that. Like, who has time for that? Nobody wants to take, do some kind of treatment that might be the right thing. We want to have something more prescriptive. We move from universal screening, which identifies, say, something's wrong, a fever, infection, to a lab report, a diagnostic assessment, which identifies the underlying cause. So we want to look at cause versus symptoms. A student may present a symptom of poor reading comprehension. However, the cause might be decoding or phonics deficit. So treating the symptom with more comprehension drills is ineffective use of resources and probably will not have a positive effect on the student's reading ability. So we want to make sure we have a verified skill deficit. All interventions must target the verified deficit identified in the diagnostic assessment. So if decoding is a verified cause, the treatment must be decoding, regardless of how the comprehension symptom presents. So differential diagnosis. Effective MTSS requires us to ask what specific skill is missing and what stage of hierarchy is the student stuck. So where is the first place in the hierarchy of skills does the student top out? Where do they get stuck? So let's look at the different stages. So we say here there's different stages of healing because we're likening this to a healthcare system. But when students have gaps or behind, they can be in the acquisition, they could be in phase. This is learning the skill, focusing on accuracy and modeling. Fluency, which is working on the automaticity, focus, speed, practice, and opportunities to respond. And then they move up to the generalization. That's the application of the actual skill, focusing on skill, using the skill in new context and text. Intervention must match the stage of healing. Before prescribing a treatment plan, we must determine the patient's status within the instructional hierarchy. Applying a fluency intervention to a student in the acquisition phase is a diagnostic error. We must match the treatment to the specific stage of the student's skill development. So let's see, let's move on to this. Oh, I went too far. So we're going to talk about the formulary, and this is actually your tier 2 and tier 3 intervention inventory. And so we talked about a tier 2 standard protocol earlier, and a tier 2 standard protocol is a menu of interventions that you use district-wide for a specific skill. So if your students are struggling with phonics, if a student is needing phonics support, this is what you use across the district. If they're struggling with phonological awareness, this would be the intervention everyone in the district uses. Fluency, we use repeated reading. This is what everyone in the district uses from this specific, program room. And the reason why you want to do that is because well, we're going to get in that. We'll get into the why here in just a second. So let me show you this. So this is kind of just a screenshot of what an intervention menu or inventory would be. And some of my the OCLSD districts, you might have seen this on a report recently. And this is kind of what one would look like. So it's just saying the tier 2 protocol for elementary phonics is explicit small group phonics, blending, segmenting routines, and then you'd want to have like the specific program you use or where you want people to pull that intervention from. And then for tier 3, it would be more one-on-one instruction, increased modeling, and manipulative practice. So maybe some hands-on using your Elkin boxes or something like that. So you want to be very specific at what these look like across the board. So say secondary comprehension, that might look like explicit strategy instruction, text annotation from this particular program or source. And then for tier 3 for that would be individualized strategy instruction, scaffolded text analysis. So let me give you like a little visual. Oh, I wish I knew that. I didn't. Let me give you. Okay, so this is that's a decision-making flow chart. That's not the one. This little box is in my way. Let's see. Nope, that's not the one. I had these in order, I thought. Okay, here we go. So here is a standard protocol document that I have that I'm going to share with you. It talks about what it is, why it matters. There's all these little bullet points that helps describe it. And then here's how districts build the menu. And so there's step-by-step directions on how you guys can create your own. Now, that wouldn't be that helpful if I didn't provide you with some templates. And so on here, I have provided you with, here's a sample of what one would look like. So again, phonological awareness, this is what it looked like in tier 2, tier 3, and then here would be, and I'm not promoting any of these are just ones I pulled off the top of my head. So this one would maybe the district uses UFly for this one and this one, or 95% group, whatever it is your district already has. It could be something in with your evidence-based reading program already. It might already have that source, but it just needs to be specified. So everyone's using the same thing. Here is a digital version that I'm going to share with you too, a digital workbook, so that you could come through here and change these to whatever they need to be. And you can even click, okay, hey, this has strong evidence on what works clearinghouse. And this is for tier 2 or tier 3. And anyway, you can put in the different boxes, maybe what grade band it's for. So this is a really useful tool. Right here, we have your decision rules on a tab. So you come up with, what makes what the indicator is, what the rule is for it, and the action that takes place. So if a student has 3 data points below their aim line, you're going to intensify the intervention. Okay. And then a fidelity check little tab. So if you wanted to, administrators, if you want to go in and do a fidelity check on a certain tier 2 intervention, you could take notes and put that information here. So that is a digital copy of what a standard protocol would look like. Okay, so tier 2 fidelity. So let's talk about this for a minute. Clinical delivery. And I think this goes without saying. The deal with fidelity is you cannot measure, you cannot make decisions on that student if the intervention isn't delivered with fidelity. So this gets me to where I want to explain, why do you need a standardized protocol? Why do you need a menu of interventions for your district? Well, here's why. Imagine that everyone starts pulling whatever they have, random things for, say, fluency. Well, first of all, it's hard for you to track the fidelity of it. Like, was it delivered as intended? How will you know if there's 50 different interventions going on? Is it evidence-based? How will you know? Well, who has time to go check what each teacher is using for that? It needs to be like the thing that's proven to work. Like look at What Works Clearinghouse. I mean, because these are students, just like healthcare. You wouldn't want your doctor to pull something that wasn't actually proven to work yet, hadn't been tested. That would be, you don't want to shortchange your students. So having a specific one that's proven, evidence-based, allows you, it allows you to check fidelity of implementation. Was it delivered as it was supposed to? But it also takes away decision fatigue. When you are in a data meeting, and I mean, like, we don't have very many minutes in the day, right? So if you're in a data meeting and you're like, okay, this kid needs fluency, well, what do we want to use? You don't want teachers to have to go run off and find their own thing. I mean, that's a barrier, right, to it happening. So you want to be able to look and go, okay, this kid needs phonics. Here's the intervention we use. Next, right? Next kid. Let's move on through these. Oh, it's, this is what we use. So there's multiple reasons, evidence-based reasons why you want to have that menu. So let's talk about progress monitoring. So you've identified your student. They were flagged on the screener. You did a diagnostic assessment to see exactly where that student is getting stuck on the hierarchy of skills. And now you have chosen a vetted, evidence-based intervention that's proven to work, right? So you've run this intervention the way it was designed. So now it's time to progress monitor, check the vital signs. All right. So on this screen here, you see that we have the screening, the checkup, universal screening. It's infrequent, like 3 times a year. And it's a broad health measure. So that's your screening. But progress monitoring is checking in. So it's specific. So if your doctor prescribes you some medicine for a particular something that's not going well with you, he needs to check in, right? He's going to say, hey, take this, and then come back in 6 weeks. Let's see if it's working, or 2 weeks. Let's see if it's working. He's going to do frequent, maybe, and for students, we would do weekly or biweekly check-ins. So depending on if it's tier 2, how severe it is. And so for tier 2 students, usually biweekly is a good time to check in and make sure that they are responding to the prescription. So it also detects short-term growth. So if nothing is moving and they're not responding, we need to jump in there and either increase the dosage. And we'll talk about ways we would do that in a minute. All right, so let's talk about implementation fidelity, treatment adherence. Implementation fidelity, did the program fail or was it not implemented? So did the medicine the doctor give you fail, or did you not take it the way you were supposed to? So that is something to, oh my goodness. I can hear a vacuum cleaner. Hopefully you guys cannot hear that on the other side of the door. All right, let me make sure I have my good notes here. So there are 5 dimensions of integrity. The content, all critical components are delivered. We didn't cherry pick and just pick the things that we like to do. We did all the things that were supposed to happen. The dosage was correct. It was the frequency. So if we were supposed to do it 3 days a week for 15 minutes, we did that. The group size, if you have too big of a group, it's not going to be effective. That's why for tier 2, I do 3 to 5 kids. If you have 6 or more, it's not very small group anymore. So look at the group size. Delivery, quality of modeling and feedback. So was it delivered as the intervention was made to be delivered, with quality modeling and feedback to the student, that back and forth opportunities to respond. And then data adherence, was there consistent collection? And so did whoever did the intervention write down and document the date and maybe some quantitative data, like, hey, they got 8 out of 10 of this particular phonics skill. So for clinical best practices, you want to keep focus on just the 5 essential ingredients here on the screen. And then fidelity checks. Let's talk about that for a minute. So another reason, I'm going to jump back to a few slides before when we talked about having the intervention menu, the standardized protocol. Another reason you want to do that is because you can train you at a short meeting or a PLC. You can train, here's how this intervention is supposed to look. Then you can drop in, every once in a while and do a tier 2 fidelity check to see, is it being done? And so you want to frame fidelity checks as clinical rounds, like model, gives supportive feedback to ensure student recovery is happening. But it shouldn't be an administrative evaluation. You're just like offering support, like, hey, like, what's a barrier here to this? Can I help? It's not like a, gotcha. All right, so looking at this slide, the prognosis, interpreting the chart. So we have number 1 is the intervention working as designed. We're looking at our progress monitoring data. Is it working? Does it need to be intensified, like by giving it more time, size, explicitness? And is the student ready to fade or exit? Maybe the student just had that one gap and is now excelling. Well, we don't want to keep the student in the intervention, so we might want to fade it out or exit them out of tier 2. So it could go in either of those ways, but you have to look at the progress monitoring data to know. Okay, so the next slide is treating the root cause. So if students are not responding to tier 2, where the standard protocol usually fits most students because it's been proven to, sometimes students are not going to respond. So what do? So we talk about tier 3 is maybe the intensive care. We give them more responsive, individualized, adaptive prescriptions. So we're going to look closer at the DBI process. So in the DBI process, look at what step 1 is. Step 1 is validated intervention program. This comes from your standard protocol menu. Okay, it's not something that a teacher printed off of Teachers Pay Teachers because it was cute. This is like, it's been proven to work. This is what we use. So that's the first step. And if that's not in place, really, it's going to be really hard for you to make decisions, validated decisions. And then step 2 is progress monitoring. So we're going to run the intervention, and then we are going to progress monitor, say weekly or bi-weekly, probably bi-weekly for tier 2. Like I said, tier 3 students, they may need it more often. And then step 3, we are going to do, we're going to look at the diagnostic assessment. We're going to determine if the intervention is showing showing responsiveness or not. And then if not, we're going to step 4, we're going to adapt the intervention. And then we're going to progress monitor again. And so this is a continuous progress. And then we'll go back to the diagnostic. Okay, what's next? Maybe they did, maybe they are progressing in that and that gap has closed. Well, what's the next skill? Is there another one? And so we'll go back to the diagnostic. We'll run the intervention, progress monitor, and then we go through this DBI process. It's a continual process. Okay, so let's talk about intensifying the intervention. So what if you do need to intensify the intervention? Maybe you run the tier 2 validated protocol for fluency, repeated readings, and it's just not getting better. Like there's no movement. Then we need to look at adjusting the dosage. We don't just add more time, we change the chemistry. So I like this visual because you can look, you could change the strength, the dosage, the alignment, attention to transfer, behavioral support, individualization. So there's all of these things that go into adjusting the dosage of the intervention. So so for instance, on strength, the research-based efficacy of the program, we would look at that. We want to select the most potent evidence-based instructional program available for that specific deficit. Okay. On dosage, that we want to increase the frequency of the sessions to maximize the number of opportunities to respond. Okay, we want to make sure that the instructional focus is aligned to the underlying cause, not just treating the symptoms. We're digging down to why the gap is there and treating that. And then attention to transfer, that's talking about making it stick so that they can transfer it across contexts. So those are some things that you can do to intensify the intervention at tier 3. And so this slide talks about clinical rounds, data-based individualization, and intensive error analysis. When the standard protocol, tier 2, proves insufficient, the team initiates what we would call clinical rounds using the DBI protocol to intensify the intervention, using some of the ideas from the slide below. So you want to make sure you have a validated intervention program. Begin by making quantitative changes to the instruction, more time, smaller group, maybe one-on-one. We want to progress monitor. We're going down the DBI process, collect frequent data on the intensified intervention. We want to conduct intensive error analysis. That's the diagnostic assessment. That involves reviewing student work and observation to identify patterns of errors rather than just looking at the raw score. Sometimes we got to dig in and go, wait, what is it that they're literally messing up on every time? And then intervention adaptation, we want to adapt the intervention focus or delivery based on the diagnostic findings. And then we're going to progress monitor again, continuously evaluate the response to the specific adaptation to see if it needs to be tweaked even more. So a word of warning, before you change the prescription, before your doctor would change a prescription, you want to adapt the intervention. So you might just need to up the dosage or lessen the dosage sometimes, right? We can't ethically or clinically assess a treatment's effectiveness if it was never actually delivered as intended. And so data-based individualization, that is a long word. So our goal is the discharge, right? The discharge goals, reintegrating to core. Now, I don't want you to think that they don't get core. No, they do. Like tiers build on each other. So if they're tier 2 students, they get tier 1 and tier 2. If they are at tier 3, they're getting tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Kind of like a layer cake. But our goal is for every student to get the exact care that they need to be able to thrive at that tier 1 core instruction, right? So let's see. If an intervention does not directly target the area of non-proficiency, increased time alone is not only ineffective, it's an unethical use of student time and resources. More of the wrong medicine will never close the gaps. So our ultimate mission is to use data to determine when a student has achieved academic health, we could say, and is ready to fade supports or transition away from tier 2 and tier 3 supports. By treating instruction with diagnostic precision, we can ensure every student receives the exact care required for recovery and growth. So, as we conclude our clinical lens of the MTSS process, remember that an effective MTSS clinic is built on precision and data. Every team meeting and every instructional decision must return to critical questions. What specific skill is the student missing? And what stage of the hierarchy is the student stuck? Our mission is to move extra help, move from extra help to clinical precision using the formulary, which is our intervention menu, to select the right treatment. And then we're going to monitor the vital signs. We're going to progress monitor and maintain protocol integrity to ensure our safety net is sufficient. So I hope that healthcare lens helps you think more about how tier 2 and tier 3 decisions are made. I have a couple of are there any questions? Does anyone have anything they want to throw in the chat? Any questions there? Will we have access these resources? You will. So now is the time. So, let me go back. So Paige is going to put these resources in the chat so you can go ahead and download them. I keep clicking on the screen, so sorry about that. So Paige, is she in there? Let's see. I don't see her.
Okay. I'm in here. I'm sending them right now.
Oh, she's in there. Okay. So she is going to put the links in the chat. You'll also have access to this presentation. So if you want to take this now back to your school and do it with maybe your leadership team, or just save it for later. We always put these on our YouTube channel. So you can find those there after this. And so 2 things I have for you. I have a decision-making flow chart. So I'm going to, while she's putting those in the chat, I'm going to show you what this is. I'm so excited about this. So we have to have decision rules, right? To support your district with clear, consistent decision-making process for how data are reviewed. So I'm not going to read all of this to you, but here's step-by-step directions, what you'll do. You can download the editable decision flowchart template. So I made you a template. You'll be forced to make a copy, and then it's yours to do with however you want to customize it. I've also included an example flowchart. So it looks like this. Isn't that nice? This is from one that Bixby shared with us to use. So you can look at theirs, but then you can customize it to your needs. And so yours will look like this, and you can go click in those boxes, color code them, write whatever you want. You can put your district branding in there. So I hope that is helpful to you. And then, of course, the next one is this document that tells you about your standard protocol that we really harped on today. And then here is your sample, and then the digital version, and then one that you can edit. Yeah, it's up there somewhere. But one other thing I added in there is a tier 2 and tier 3 intervention assessment. So you can actually take this to one of your leadership meetings, and you guys can rate yourself like, okay, what do we have? Where do we need to work? Or if you want to, you could do a pre-assessment with it just to kind of assess where you are with this, or go ahead and implement it and then go back and go, okay, do we have this, and this? I mean, I think it makes sense to look at it maybe before, because this 5 is where you're aiming, right? This is when you have like really good implementation of it. So I included that for your use with your teams to use. Okay, once you have those in there, will you please either scan this QR code or click on the link for the quick survey that Paige stuck in there for you. Give us a little feedback on this presentation so that we can make sure we're providing good resources for you, good information. It's a real quick one. And then the last slide, while you're doing your survey, I'll just keep this up. If you want to register for future OKMTSS calls, although if you have already registered, you're registered for them all. But you can share this, or if you're not sure, you want to register, do that. And then another thing I want to say is we're starting this month a brand new MTSS office hour. So this will be a time for you to come and go. You're gonna you can hop on a Zoom. I'll just be here. It's not a professional development. I don't have slides or anything like that. I'm just here to answer questions, talk about things. If you can come and go, if you just want to hop on and hear what other people are asking, because we learn from others in that way. You can just hop on and hear what other people are doing in their district. We might find things that are working that you can take back to your district and use. And yeah, so just an open time to share about MTSS, get information or resources that you need. So there is the QR code and the link to register for our office hour, and it will be the second Thursday of every month. I believe the second Thursday of every month, you can hop on the office hour, and it's just a good way to build community and learn from each other. And also, you'll know I'll just be sitting in there waiting to answer questions if you want to connect. It's a good way. Okay, well, I hope you guys got something out of our presentation today. I hope the healthcare analogy made sense to you. And if you have any questions moving forward, be sure to reach out to me. I'll wait just a few more seconds and make sure everybody got a chance to get all the resources and codes and all that. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the week. Daylight savings time or time changes this weekend, so I'm so excited about that. I love having that extra daylight. I bet a lot of you do too. Okay, have a super day. Let me make sure. Where do we find the other resources? Amy, if you scroll up, where Paige stuck in the 2. Now, if you'll download those 2, inside those are other links to the rest of the things. Okay, so like in the building your decision flow chart, there'll be some links, and then in the standard protocol, there's 4 different links inside once you get that downloaded that you can access. You're very welcome. Okay, any other questions? Anybody else need anything? Okay, well, I will see you hopefully next month for our next leading OKMTSS session. Have a great week.